All right, everybody, welcome back from another deep dive. Today we're looking at the idea of worship.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about this one because I think this is something that a lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, have maybe some misconceptions about or maybe haven't
Yeah.
fully thought through all the implications of.
Mm,
Um, and the source material that you sent over was really, really interesting. It's just a small snippet from a video called The Importance of Worship.
okay.
Um, but I think just these couple of sentences really do a good job of like,
All right.
you know, kind of encapsulating everything that we need to kind of
Yeah.
dive into here. So why don't I just start by reading the little quote that they pulled out of Psalms,
Sure.
and then we can kind of use that as a springboard.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So it says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name.
Mm. Beautiful.
And I think that the source really emphasizes that worship is more than just music.
Mm.
It's a lifestyle. So I'm curious to get your take on how that might challenge maybe some of the more traditional
Mm.
assumptions about what worship is.
Yeah, I love that they brought up that psalm because I think it really speaks to like the posture of our hearts. Like,
Right.
enter his gates with thanksgiving. Like it's this idea of
Hmm.
approaching our relationship with God or approaching, whatever your concept of the divine is with this sense of gratitude and surrender and just really being open to connection.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too because the source goes on to give a few different examples
Yeah.
of how that worship can kind of manifest. And they talk about things like obviously music.
Yeah.
We think about worship music, we think about singing hymns, but they also talk about prayer and even acts of service. So
Okay.
I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how all of those very diverse actions can all fit under this umbrella
Yeah.
of worship.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately it comes back to that intentionality and the heart behind it. It's one thing to just go through the motions of saying a prayer, but when we approach it with that sense of reverence and devotion,
Hmm.
and with that awareness that we're connecting to something bigger than ourselves, that's where it becomes an act of worship.
And same thing with acts of service. I think
Absolutely.
it's one thing to just kind of do something nice for somebody, but if you're doing it with this sense of wanting to I don't know, like honor God or kind of live out your
Yeah,
faith,
like being an expression of your faith
yeah,
in the world.
then it really does become something much more than just
Yeah.
a random act of kindness.
Exactly. And it's interesting because the source also mentions the transformative power of worship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's maybe the part that's most intriguing to me
Mm.
is that how does worship actually change us? Like how does it strengthen our faith? How does it draw us closer to God?
Well, we were talking earlier about like, going to the gym and working out our physical muscle. And in a way, it's kind of similar with our spiritual lives. The more we focus our attention and intention on God,
Hmm.
the more we cultivate that connection, the stronger it becomes, and the more we're able to experience like those shifts within
This
ourselves.
is like we're building up that spiritual endurance
Yeah,
so that when challenges come our way,
Mm.
we're more able to kind of stand firm in our faith.
Exactly. And, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Just like with physical exercise, sometimes it's hard to get motivated.
Right.
But the rewards are so worth it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the source really kind of hammered home was this idea of encountering God's presence.
Mm.
And I know that that's a phrase that can mean a lot of different things to different people. So I guess what does that look like for you? Like, what does it mean to encounter God's presence?
That's a great question. And I think it's something that's always evolving for me,
Yeah.
But at its core, I think it's about that sense of awe and wonder
Hmm.
and recognizing that there's something so much bigger than ourselves. Sometimes it's a very tangible feeling, like you're out in nature and you're just surrounded by beauty and you feel this sense of connection.
Right.
And sometimes it's much more subtle. It's just a quiet stillness within.
Hmm.
But I think the key is being open to it.
Yeah, and being willing to kind of look for it in the everyday
Yeah.
moments
It is.
of our lives.
Yeah.
Now, at the very end of the excerpt, they have a call to action that says, "Subscribe to Kingdom Soul Fuel."
Okay.
And I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on how resources like that can support someone who is on this journey of trying to cultivate a deeper sense of worship in their life.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable to have those resources in those communities, because we're not meant to do this alone. Having people who can inspire us and encourage us and challenge us, and offer different perspectives and practices. I think it can just really enrich our journey.
Yeah, it's like having a support system for your soul.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel like this deep dive has really kind of expanded my understanding of what worship can be.
Yeah, me too.
It's so much more than just, singing songs on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It really is about cultivating this lifestyle of gratitude and intention, and really just kind of being open to that connection with the divine.
Beautifully said.
And for those of you listening, I guess I would just leave you with this. If worship is this ongoing conversation with God, what question is on your heart today? What do you need to bring to that conversation? Think about that, and until next time, keep diving deep.